What's up, hockey fans? Welcome to another edition of Just Winging It. We're back here at Wings Event Center. We've got a very special guest for you today, another K-Wings legend, this time from the 80s. It is number 11, Brent Jarrett. Thanks for doing this. First of all, what have you been up to?
Oh, just, working. That's about it,
How has life changed, though, over the last 14 months with the pandemic? Has work changed at all for you?
No, because we were essential workers, so it didn't affect us at all,
What are you doing these days?
So I work for a company called Ericsson, so we do all Sprint's cellular. So, because it's the 911 calls and everything, that's why we're essential. And we got the letter saying we're essential, but we don't see anybody because we're out in the field, and it's, we go to the towers, and I work at the bottom of the towers.
You're part of that fabled group of K-Wings alumni that have stuck around the area, which always fascinates me, and I think it shows when we all get together at Nisker's for a couple of drinks and some good stories. And it's been a while since the last one that I can recall, but what went into that decision initially to stick around Kalamazoo? Because you played a majority of your career here and still call this area home.
Well, in '85, I bought a sports store, and it was BJ Sports. We ended up naming it. So that brought me here, kept me here anyway, and then ended up getting married here, and then it's a great little town. I mean, everybody that comes here loves it, and that's why so many people stick around.
When was the last time you were at a hockey game? Because it's been a while for us now with the season getting canceled and all that. But for you, when was the last time you were in a rink?
It's been a while. Although my son played up at Calvin for a little bit, so we were in and out of there. But that was before COVID too, so it's been a while.
Can you remember the last time you laced up the skates?
Oh, we play every Sunday on.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of us and they're not very good hockey players, but they're good guys.
Yeah.
And there are some good ones. John Flesch plays, Laurie Nisker plays. Laurie's hurt right now, so he's not playing. But so it's just a bunch of guys, no referees, just like a shinny game.
Yeah. Those are fun though. I mean, that's just a good time, good camaraderie.
Yeah, and then we go to Nisker's after, and burgers and beer, and home by 9.
That's a great day.
Yeah.
Especially if the wives let you out of the house for that long.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to get permission when I do stuff like that. But
that's a given.
If it's a weekly thing, then you know what to expect,
to
prepare for. Life after hockey. How much do you still watch these days? Do you have a rooting interest? I know some hockey players kind of stay away from the game and don't watch a lot of NHL games, but some can't get away from it.
No, I watch all the time. I watch the NHL all the time. As long as it's on TV, I'm watching the games. And it's kind of in your blood. I know how some guys just kind of walk away and they stay away, but I coached around the area here for like 25, 27 years, kids all the way up, and it sticks with you. So yeah, I watch all the time.
You also had 1 year as head coach of the North American Hockey League team up in Gaylord, which is just a 3-hour drive from Kalamazoo, 2.5 hours. And I spent a little bit of time broadcasting in the NAHL, a more modern version of the league. What was it like making that transition from a player to a coach, and what was the biggest thing you take away from that?
Well, it's changed. The kids have changed. Back then, it wasn't changed as much, but you could see it was changing. It was so different. So when I coached in minor hockey, you had to teach them everything on what to do. Once we went into the junior level, I can remember my first practice. When we resurfaced, I had to go back in and get some more drills in my head because these guys were doing it all perfect. You didn't have to stop and teach them. So, yeah, it was good. It was just different, Sometimes they just didn't understand the game the way you understood the game.
Yeah. It wasn't the last time you coached either. I mean, you helped out the K-Wings for a bit at the end of the season, right before Nick Bootland took over. From my understanding, you kind of got thrown onto the bench as head coach for a couple games. How did that all happen?
Well, they called me, and I said sure. I think there was 3 games or 2 games left, and if they won 2, I think they had to win both of them to get in the playoffs. And they asked me to go on there, and being a former K-Wing, why not, right?
Yeah.
You've been a coach, so just go in there. And that was different because now you're coaching pros, so it's completely different than coaching kids, And but it was good. It was fun.
Yeah, something you would maybe come out of retirement and help out again if called upon?
No,
not under the same circumstances, hopefully.
Done coaching, that's for sure.
But that year, though, did you have any involvement with the team up to that point, or you just were around town and you got the call?
I was just around town, and I don't even know who called me at the time, but I was just around town, and they knew I was coaching.
Yeah.
Youth hockey. So.
Yeah, interesting. The end of your playing career, there was a gap in between, and I don't know the whole story. So did you retire and come out of retirement and play 12 games 2 seasons later?
Yeah,
or?
yeah. So I retired in '87, and then in '89 they were short guys or injuries.
Yep.
And so they called me back out, and that was probably the hardest thing I ever did because
Really?
I was so far. Well, you know, you just
Yeah,
get in game
yeah.
shape, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I did all right, and that was the whole thing. Let me see if I can go back and play with these kids, you know. And I can't remember what I had, 9 or 10 points.
Yeah,
in
in
the
12 games.
So I thought, you know, yeah, I could do this. And then the season ended. I think I pulled a groin near the end, and then they went into playoffs, and then that was when they were connected with Minnesota. So basically, that's who they wanted to see was all their guys. So
Yeah.
I just gotta.
I was going to say, I'm a stat guy, so when I look these things up, I see the stats. I'm like, you could have still played a couple more years if you wanted to. I mean, 9 points in 12 games.
When I retired in '87, because I had the sports shop, you
Yeah.
know, you realize by a certain time you're not going anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
So, you know, what do? Do you just retire and run the sports shop and get on with life, or do you know, chase your dream? Well, I decided just to,
Yeah.
retire.
How much was that sports shop a passion of yours? I mean, it seems like that was something you jumped right in and it took off.
Yeah, I did both for 2 years. I did the sports shop and played for 2 years before I retired. So, and you know, it's right up your alley, right? You know, you just matter of learning prices, learning the equipment, or selling it to kids, and everything was good there.
Yeah. The biggest season in your playing career, you had a couple back-to-back in the early 80s, but the 81-82 season, 122 points in 77 games, career highs. Favorite memory from that season? Do you have one that sticks out from, or maybe a reason for the...
Well, that's probably the shorthanded goal record that year.
Mm-hmm.
That was the key. You know, I think it was 74-75. The guy had the record was 7 goals. Well, I ended up with 11, and then the next year, Dirk Graham, who ended up playing in Chicago for the Blackhawks, he came back with 10. And they said that he broke my record. Well, what they failed to do was the last game of the year, I scored 2 shorthanded goals, which they did. They recorded the goals but didn't record them as shorthanded. So I think it was Terry Ficcarelli or Steve Doherty. You know, they got on the horn right away and said, no, he didn't break
Those
the
two are on top of their game.
Yeah,
Even to
they
this
were.
day, they're
Yeah,
sharp.
yeah,
They've got those stats down. You were in Saginaw for 2 games. Was that before you came to Kalamazoo, that 81-82 season? How did that play out?
Yeah, so the year they won it, which was 80-81, I was there. I was like the second leading scorer behind Marcel Como, who ended up winning the scoring race. They loaned me to Milwaukee because I was the only non-pro contract. So I got loaned to Milwaukee, and then when I went back to Saginaw the next year, I played 2 games, and they said, well, we can't afford you. So they were looking for that minimum pay thing.
Yep.
And so they just loaned me to Kalamazoo, and then I came here.
Because then after that 81-82 season, you did go back, though, for a year, correct?
I had to go back because it was just a loan.
Oh, it was a loan.
It's a
Oh,
loan.
that's
You
how
know,
that
back
played
in those
out.
days, yeah, it was loan. It wasn't a trade. So
Yeah.
they still owned my rights. So when I went back, I said, no, I want to be traded to Kalamazoo. And their thing was, well, we'll trade you, but we're not gonna say it's gonna be Kalamazoo. We're gonna take the best deal there was.
Oh, okay.
Well, then I started looking, saying, do I want to end up here or there or whatever? So we ended up. Marcel Como was the coach, so we ended an agreement that he was gonna buy different sticks for me because they were using bad sticks, and then I just said, you know what, let's just let me play.
So, I mean, it's crazy to me. I mean, the business side of the game hasn't changed a whole lot other than the dollars from the 80s to today's game. You have the GMs kind of wheeling and dealing, you loan players to different leagues from time to time, different teams, the trades and things like that. That part is in some ways similar. For you to go through that, and clearly Kalamazoo is where you stuck it out the last few years of your career is where you wanted to play. But those in-between years, knowing the guys on Kalamazoo's roster, having played with them, knowing the guys on Saginaw's roster, was there a lot of friendly banter or trash talk that took place on the ice?
Yeah, there always is. It doesn't matter if you played with them or
Right.
against them your whole career. I mean, there was always that you step on the ice and there's no friends on the ice.
Yeah.
But there was friends off the ice. But obviously,
How excited were you to be back in Kalamazoo that next year then, especially after how that conversation happened where you wanted to come here?
Yeah, so so Saginaw ended up folding after that year.
Yeah.
And so Kalamazoo traded whoever to get that first pick to bring me back in. And that was nice coming back to Kalamazoo because this is where I wanted to be, right?
It was kind of like a supplemental draft in a way. Then Saginaw folded so those players other teams could draft them.
Yeah.
Interesting. the 80s weren't exactly known as the glory years for the team. There were some good teams, though, in that decade. But the 70s, obviously, the two Turner Cups.
Right.
But for you had a lot of big years personally. And then that playoff run, you guys did make a little bit of a run. Was it 86, 85, or 86? Do you remember?
Yeah, I can't remember those playoff runs, no.
No, but there's any stories from that period later in your career before you retired that stand out?
I can remember the one year, and I think it might have been the 80, the year I won the scoring races. We had a bunch of shorthanded goals.
Yeah.
And back in those days, you only had a 17-man roster. So if somebody got injured, you had a 14-man roster.
Yeah.
And I can remember we played, I don't know how many games, but there was only 12 guys that played. So we were called, came out in the hockey news as the Dirty Dozen. And we were winning with 12 guys.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
And it didn't phase you, it seems like. I've heard from a couple of different alumni members about that shortened bench, and you guys just kept winning.
Yeah, you just play, and sometimes the more you play, the better you are.
Yeah.
So.
Did anybody ever try to take advantage of that and try to get somebody thrown out of a game knowing you were short benched already? I mean, you rarely see it today, but if a team's shorthanded, or let's say they have an emergency backup goalie, they maybe go try to get under the skin of the starter in case they have to put the e-bug in.
No, not really. But back in those days, I mean, the fighting, we had brawls, we had everything.
Yeah.
Nobody really got kicked out, even if you're in a brawl. There was nobody really suspended. You went in the box for 5 minutes, and that was it.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you think of the funniest or craziest story from your playing career that we can air that's not, PG-13 or rated R, but something that stands out from your career, whether it's like you said, a line brawl happened all the time. Is it a road trip or a funny bus story? Something that stands out that the fans will get a kick out of.
Well, I can remember when we were going into Peoria, and I can't remember if we flew in and got a bus, but I remember being on the bus, and Wayne Crawford looked out the window, who was sitting in the back, said, "Our tire just passed us." Well, one of the tires came off, and so we pulled off at this gas station, and the bus driver went up to get the tire while he was rolling the tire back down to the gas station. Well, it was downhill, and it got away from him, and it just hit one of the gas pumps and went to the left or whatever. So that was pretty a story that you'd never really see.
Was it on a game day? Or was it the day before?
I think we played the next day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at least you didn't have to delay the game or anything like that.
And then there was another one. We flew back from Salt Lake City to Indianapolis. And when we got to Indianapolis, the 4 bags didn't show up and no sticks. So we decided that we had 5 sticks and we'll just kind of hand them off as we go. So just before we went for warm-up, the sticks showed up, and I remember all the bags showed up, and Billy Terry was one of the players at that time. His bag didn't show up, but then it showed up, and in that game he separated his shoulder and he was gone for...
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I was going to say, to try to play a game with 5 sticks and then pass them off as you go on a line change.
Well, especially me, I use the shortest stick ever.
Did you break a lot of sticks, though? No, I was going to say, with the short sticks, you might have...
Yeah, didn't break very many. They just kind of wore out.
Yeah. I've heard, and I don't know anything about anything, I'm just, from what I hear, that sometimes you'd think the wooden sticks would break more often than the new composite graphite sticks that they use, but I've heard that it could be the opposite too. I mean, they break those because of the flex.
Well, you got to take it all into perspective. All these guys are so much stronger now. Everybody's stronger, taller. So and every stick has to have a break point.
Yeah,
that's
it's a business. Yeah, you got to sell more sticks.
And you listen to the NHL. Maybe they should go back to the wood. They don't break as often. Well, I think they would break just as often, just because they're so much
today's
stronger.
game.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've got some fun rapid fire questions that I always have for at the end of these interviews that are fun, get to know you type questions. Less about your career, more about get to know you. First one is about your career. Most talented teammate you ever played with? Maybe a teammate that made you better.
Oh, definitely Bernie Saunders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked to Bernie recently. He's living in South Carolina these days.
Yeah.
He's got a book coming out.
Yeah, I heard that.
Which is exciting. A rival that you love to hate, whether a team rival or a player or...
that was probably Fort Wayne. That was a big rivalry.
Not much has changed.
Not
over
much
the
has
years.
changed. Yeah.
Biggest superstition or routine that you'd go through on a game day?
I usually drove to the rink the same way if I was successful in the game before.
Yeah, and then if you weren't, then maybe you take a different route?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Secret talent that's not related to hockey that maybe people don't know about you?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know. Probably that I could fix anything that's broke, you know, whether it be a lawnmower, whether it be plumbing in the house or whatever. Pretty.
We'll talk after this
Yeah.
episode. I might need you. Favorite golf course in the area?
That'd probably have to be what's it called? Thornapple Creek.
Okay, I haven't played that yet. That's on the list. If you could pick a celebrity golf foursome, anybody to join you in a round of golf, it could be living or dead, I guess. If you want to pick somebody was famous.
Well, I'd definitely be Gretzky because I played with him in junior, so that would be a good reminiscent one. You know, probably Bernie Saunders, probably John Flesh, which I see him all the time, but it's always a good time with John. And the fourth would probably be, maybe Billy Terry. Maybe he just comes to mind.
Yeah, that'd be a fun group.
Yeah.
I want to go backwards now because you said you played with Gretzky in juniors. What was that experience like?
Oh, that was just, you know, it was with the Greyhounds, and it was his one and only year junior, and it was just, you know, it was just amazing to watch him. You know, how they talk about Crosby, these guys, like we saw an interview last night with Zucker or whatever. He said, you know, to watch him every night, it's just incredible. Well, it was the same with Gretzky, right? I mean, he was 16 years old. He had 182 points. Bobby Smith won the scoring with 192, and he was 19. You know, and just to watch this kid day in and day out do some of the things that he did was just, it was special.
And that year, after the year in Sioux, was that the year he went to Indianapolis in the WHA before Edmonton? So there was that in between.
It was that personal services contract.
Yeah,
It wasn't even a hockey contract,
right?
Right, for $1.75 million or something at 17 years old.
Not a bad contract in the 70s and 80s,
He couldn't get into the bars, and he's getting all this money, right?
So everybody knew he was going to be good, like really special, but maybe not the greatest ever.
I think one of the big things was he going to be able to last. You know what I mean, as far as the hitting, and because it was, you know, you got to think nowadays the hitting's not like it was back then, and they'd zero in on you. Well, he was just so elusive that they couldn't get him.
Yeah, I want to go back to before we get back to the rapid fire questions. Playing in Sioux. Briefly, you grew up there, from my understanding, correct? So you're from across the lifts on the Canadian side of Sault Ste. Marie.
I'm from the Canadian side.
Yep. And then played most of your career, juniors and pro, in Michigan or near Michigan. I think the furthest away was maybe Milwaukee. That half a season you were in Milwaukee.
Correct.
So Michigan is really like a home in a lot of ways. Obviously, you call it home to this day, but you're from just across the water in Sault Ste. Marie. Where's the furthest you ever branched off?
Oh, well, I played for the '84 Olympic team for a few games for Canada, and I was out in Calgary. I think we played a game in Edmonton. So I was in Calgary. I was stationed in Calgary for 10 days and played 4 games against the Russian. They were on a 10-game tour, and thought I was going to end up staying there, but come to find out, it was just so they could rest their players.
The Russians.
Nobody told us. And
was that before the NHL guys could play in the Olympics?
Yeah. You know, Tippett from
Dave Tippett.
Dave Tippett. He was the captain of the team.
Oh wow.
And, Flattery that played for the Islanders. He was there, and Deneen was there, I think. Yeah. It's
a good group.
Yeah, it was a pretty good group.
How good were the Russians in '84? Because all we know in the States is the Miracle on Ice in 1980 kind of was the...
They were incredible.
Yeah.
They were just, I mean, you know, they do the, you know, you see that Russian 5 movie, they all of them did that. They just kept spinning around. And we never played that way, right? We never took the puck back. It was either dump it in and go get it or whatever. You know, next thing you know, they got it at the blue line. There's one guy and he dumps it back. And it's like, what are you doing here?
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. One food that you cannot stand. One food that you just cut out altogether.
Oh, liver and onions.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't even try that.
I had to have had that when my dad when we were kids. My dad had to have that. It was just no.
This is a random one, and I was coming up with these random questions late last night. If you had to run a triathlon, which leg of the race would be your worst leg of the race, and which would be your best?
Oh, best would be first. The last would be the worst.
So the running, swimming, and biking.
Okay.
Running, swimming, and biking.
Probably the swimming would be the worst, and biking would probably be the best.
Yeah. If you had to choose between skydiving or scuba diving, what would you choose?
Oh, scuba diving.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How do you order your steak?
Medium.
Okay. Can't get you in too much trouble. If you said anything worse than that,
It's more on the rare side.
I get a hard time from our hockey apps because I like mine medium well sometimes, and that's not. I'll never live that down.
Yeah.
Your go-to drink order at your favorite restaurant. I'm going to guess Nisker's is probably one of your favorite restaurants. Go-to drink order.
Vodka and Sprite with a lime.
There you go. Last one is your TV show that you're watching right now, or maybe one that you just recently finished.
Well, I've been watching some documentaries on Netflix, and those were pretty good. And I watched that Designated Survivor.
Yeah, it's great.
That was a great show.
I just started it. I think I'm
Yeah.
through season 1, so
Yeah,
now I've got
good show.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
You
Kiefer
wish
Sutherland.
you wish it was that way now.
Yeah, I was just, there'd be a lot of drama. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of drama on social media, but if that was going on,
Yeah.
it'd be craziness. That's my rapid fire questions. Couple more is, you plan on making it to any games this year? Is that something that you still enjoy coming to this building for nostalgia? Or?
We'd come watch a few games as soon as we get back up and running.
That, like the alumni game we had a couple years ago, were you a part of that at all?
Yep, that's fun. That's always a fun time.
Yeah, we'll try to maybe see if we can get one of those going again here in the near future. Last one is, what are some of the things you're most looking forward to in the coming years? I like to call it a bucket list item, but things that you've got on the list to do, travel
Our list is, once we retire, going to buy a motorhome and travel between Canada and U.S. as far as, go out and see all the national parks and go out to Calgary and see those.
That'll be great.
Jasper and all that stuff.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
That's the plan anyway.
Thanks for doing this. We appreciate it, and it's been fun having you on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, John.
Brent Jarrett, everybody.